All right, you guys, I'm going to start this recording. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gary Usher from Volutone, and I represent all of the Snap AV local distributors, and that is MRI, our partners at AllNet, our partners at Custom Plus up north, and of course, Volutone. Each and every Wednesday, we bring together the nation's top vendors, and we do our own webinars specifically for our customers. And as Pike was just talking about, all experience maybe some fatigue or virtual overload. I'm enjoying, and I thank you guys so much for doing this with me each and every week. But I think we frame this in a whole different way. Yes, there's a billion of them out there, but this is for you. This is for having the conversation we need to have today. If you're having issues or you haven't been exposed to it at all, let's get to work. Pike, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be here. I'm just going to adjust my lighting a little bit. It's a little bit dim here once the camera adjusts, but I'm sure everyone can see me just fine. So there we go. Got a little bit more light in the room. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to being here. I love doing webinars. I wear many hats. I'll just do a quick introduction. We have a lot of content to cover, but really excited to have you guys all here and making the time. I understand everyone's really busy. I talk to installers every day, and that's always a challenge. And one of my goals is, which we were just talking about, is providing the proper support tools that you need. So that's what this webinar is about. It's getting the most out of your Harmony programming, how to get your customer excited, how to educate your customer faster, quicker, even before you get to the job site. And of course, also how to manage your clients remotely. So we covered a lot of that in the beginning of our first webinar, but we're just going to dive into this a little bit more, really talk about some of the advanced tips and tricks and best practices, and also trying to make sure that we provide a little bit more time for you to go through your questions. Now, the one thing I want to mention, this webinar, we're not going to discuss any upcoming or future integrations. That's something that we can't really comment on. We're also always looking at improving the experience. Now, that being said, I am going to show you our revamped page when it comes to our current integrations and how to search for models in our database. So that will definitely help you get the answers that you need and to see what we integrate with from a non-IR perspective as well. So with that, let's kick it off. I'm going to quickly introduce myself first. So my name is Pike. Been with the company for 14 years, going on 15 years. So very quick background check. So I started in technical support, and I'm really happy that that's where I really started my journey with Harmony, working for Logitech, because it allowed me to work with installers such as yourself right out in the field, which now I still get the luxury to do when vendors escalate an installer call, or when we get an escalation from tier 3. So it's something I really enjoy, and to this day, I carry that with me on working on improving some of our experiences, maybe software or some of our firmware features. So from there, I transitioned into QA. Again, something I still do often now. I support the team with COVID. Our QA is now spread out into all these little mini at-home labs. So it's something I still enjoy helping the team with today. From the QA team, this was kind of a transition into more looking at our data. So I've always been very passionate about our data, and that's actually one of the biggest value propositions of Harmony, because our data is smart. It's not IR codes. I mean, anyone can create a database with IR codes. Our data goes above and beyond, because we want to make it dummy proof, and not just dummy proof. We want to make sure that you don't spend the time, right, building these macros with all these crazy delays. That's really not what you need to do when you're on the location. You got to wall mount the TV, run speaker wires, do the network. There's so many jobs. So why not let us make sure that we handle that for you, and you can just configure the remote with the proper devices, and we kind of do the rest on the back end. From there, I decided to really kind of focus on the Pro channel. So since 2016, we launched the Harmony Pro, and I've basically been focused really on catering to this channel specifically. So now I basically wear all the hats, from working with installers such as yourself to doing QA, and also constantly working with our database team. And I'll talk a little bit more on what we've recently done with Samsung Frame TVs. This is kind of where my expertise also come into play. So we'll talk a little bit at the end what we've done for the Samsung Frame TVs, improving that experience. So anyways, that's enough about myself because we have a lot to cover. So here's the agenda. So we're gonna do a quick Pro 2400 overview. I'm gonna go through this rather quickly because I wanna really dive into the advanced programming features that Harmony has to offer. And make sure that I'm gonna actually share my screen starting now. Make sure, there we go. Bear with me for 1 second. Share the slide deck there. The rest wasn't really, there we go. So now we can actually put a slide to the agenda. So yeah, we're gonna start with the Pro 2400 overview, just quickly going through that. The majority of the webinar is really the next 2 bullets that you see. I wanna really walk through advanced programming features, show you the support tools, and just to mention, right, every day I get calls from installers through one way or another. Either they got my number from a webinar or through a vendor and so forth. What I see is at least 1/3 of these calls, if not more, we actually have tools and articles where you can get these answers. So I want to make sure that you guys know where to find these. We're also working on improving our dealer support site, so you have to search less and just find exactly what you need on that page. But in the meantime, I'm going to also show how you can search some of these articles that are very beneficial for many of these installs that you may be doing. And then we'll kind of round it up, talk a little bit about the latest updates on the Pro 2400. And then we'll also do a quick overview of remote accessing your client's remotes with the Harmony Pro portal. And we'll also make sure if you don't have a Pro portal, and some of you may be new to Harmony or have been doing Harmony but weren't aware that we actually have a portal similar to Oversee, we're gonna make sure that we get you up and registered and we'll get the accounts approved. And of course, I think this is one of the most important thing to this webinar is it's your voice that matters. We want to, make sure that we answer all your questions and as many as we can in this session. So with that, we're going to go ahead and continue. And let's go ahead and talk about the Harmony Pro 2400. I want to make sure that everyone here is aware of the product, its capabilities before we start, touching on the advanced programming and such. So it's a full color touchscreen remote. It supports a quick launch of favorites, which is really cool. You can just pick up the remote and press the ESPN favorite and it will actually start the Watch TV activity, which to some of you may be called a macro. Basically, all the devices turn on and we set the cable box to the right favorite channel. And then another benefit is, ideally you want to assign all the IR routing to the hub, because that way the customer doesn't have to point the remote. But there are scenarios, you may have a tower fan that you want to control, or there is an older home where you just cannot run an IR emitter or the hub is not in sight of the TV. And that provides you an option that you can assign the device to the remote. And we're going to show you actually how you would do that. Because during the initial programming, a lot of these advanced features, we don't throw in the initial programming. And that's just to save you time, because saving time is saving money. And a lot of times we see that they just simply do not apply to all your installs. So why not make that an option versus putting that all in the initial setup? Of course, it's got a tilt sensor, home control buttons, which we'll quickly talk about, and a help feature. So the home control buttons, I want to just quickly point out, this is a great way to really get the most out of your remote and simplifying home control. So this makes it easier for everyone in the house, in the living room. They may not want to be watching a movie or starting a game or starting an activity. They just want to quickly turn on the lights from the couch, and they don't want to walk up to the light switch. They don't want to yell at their voice assistant, or they maybe don't have a voice assistant. It's just another great way to quickly manage your home control devices. So you can assign a single light to the home control button, and that will then turn off that light, or when you long press it, you'll feel that haptic feedback, and then when you short press it, it will turn it back on. Or you can do a whole light group. So the whole light group will then turn off that complete group, like the dining room lights, and then when you short press it, it will turn it back on. And then of course you have the rocker switch that will dim it. We covered this a little bit more in depth in our previous webinar, which again is also recorded. But again, it's a great feature to really delight the customer, making it easier to control their lights or their shades or the door lock as well. You can add a door lock to a plug icon as well, and the rocker button will lock and unlock it. So let's talk about the Pro 2400 and some of the biggest changes when you look at it, right? The remote from cosmetics, if we just quickly, looks very similar to the Pro. It also looks similar to the Elite, but again, it's very similar to like a Mustang. You have, you know, the 4-cylinder or 6-cylinder now, that's the lowest model, or you have a Shelby, right? It's a complete different animal, right? It's no different with the Pro 2400 and the remote. So the remote actually has double the memory, so it can actually support 30 devices versus 15. Now, when we talk about supporting devices, when it comes to an API integration like lighting or Sonos, we just count that as one. So, you know, I have 9 Sonos rooms here. It just counted as one, of course. The same thing with the lights, but it's basically 30 conventional AV devices, like think of a TV or an AVR and so forth. Now, just recapping the remote. So the remote also has an improved IR modulation. So the frequency on it has slightly changed, and it now communicates with the external antenna on the Pro 2400, and this really improves the range. So the communication between the remote and the hub is using our proprietary RF, and this allows it to be a very energy efficient when it comes to battery life. It also automatically changes between channels if we see interference. And now, instead of dealing with our conventional hubs, you would get, you know, up to 50 feet, but on average, what we would see, depending on the home environment, you're looking at like, you know, 30 to 20 feet, right? Whereas here you have up to 100 feet, depending on the environment. So the range is far greater on this product. The other benefit here is that the antenna on this is actually removable. You can actually remove the antenna. It's a standard SMA antenna, so you can actually extend the range. And we'll talk a little bit later about where to find these answers. Well, you know, what kind of antenna can I use? What kind of coax connection is it, and so forth. So that's, again, all listed on our page's support site as well. And then I don't have a picture of the bottom here, but basically it's also wall mountable. It's got keyhole slots. And then another very important feature is, especially now that we see a lot of people using access points, and if they're not properly configured, you can have a lot of overlap, or even if they are configured well, it's sometimes hard for the unit to see which access point is the closest. Now, you know, anytime when you can run Ethernet, that's a big win, especially when you can have PoE or PoE plus, and you no longer need to use the AC adapter. And then the hub itself has 6 dedicated IR ports, as you can see here, and they can be assignable. So we're gonna show you how to assign these ports as well. And then the hub itself actually has 9 blasters built in. So this is great if you mount it on a ceiling and can control a projector without even having to run an emitter. They're very powerful, these 9 blasters. And then the hub, of course, is also connected to not just the local network. So locally, a client, when you let them install the Harmony app, the client then can connect the first time through the local network, discover it. But then afterwards, they can also be out of the home and control the hub. Now, that doesn't mean that they can control the programming. This is what we call the control app, right? In order to program it, a password is required, and the password is actually encrypted by default. We just generate a random string. If the customer really wants to change things, of course, they can reset the password. Again, a lot of customers don't go as far. Again, you have different customers. One of the benefits is some customers want to do small changes themselves. You can educate them on that as well, or you can do these things for them remotely. But the app is just another great benefit. Maybe they're in the backyard, the remote is inside. They can quickly pull up the app and change the favorite radio station or favorite channel. We support iOS and Android. You can have 4 connected mobile devices connected to the hub at once. So it's, again, another great feature, and it's, of course, free. And then the other feature I want to quickly talk about is that the Pro 2400 supports multi-zone, which that's only supported by our Pro remote, so the Pro and the Pro 2400. As you can see here, just here's an example. We've made it very dynamic. Of course, you can create these activities that like party mode, and we turn on all 3 or 4 zones. We can do that. But sometimes the customer may decide, you know, I'm just watching TV and now I just want to add the patio speakers to hear the baseball game out while I'm barbecuing. Well, instead of having to do a separate activity, they just swipe to the zone screen on the activity, watch TV or watch movie, right? As you can see here, and then just click on patio. What we're going to do is we're going to automatically turn on the secondary zone and set it to that same source. So now they basically, similar to like grouping with Sonos or Hios, we're providing that feature now for the secondary zone. Now, there are some advanced programming pieces that I always try to educate installers on what you want to do when you're dealing with multi-zone devices. So that's something that we're going to walk through the actual programming part. And then when it comes to our compatibility and integrations, that we're actually going to cover on our support side. So I'm just going to pause my sharing for a second, and now we're going to switch it up. Okay, so what I want to show you is it's all about getting the answers that you need before we jump into the programming demo of it. And then maybe before we jump into that, we might take a quick pause to see if there's some current questions we may want to take. So you can see here, I'm now signed into the Pro portal on a desktop, and we'll talk about when do you need to run this on your mobile device, and then we'll dive into that a little bit more. Yes, the portal can be accessed on your computer, on your laptop, but for programming, we want to start using the mobile, and we'll dive into some of the benefits and the reasons why we want to use the mobile app for connecting to our remotes. Now, the portal, as I view it here on the desktop, this could be great for if you want to take courses, if you want to research some stuff. There's no harm in bringing this up on your laptop. There's just 2 different experiences. You have the kind of the learning experience, and then you have, of course, the programming experience. So I'm signed into our portal. We'll talk a little bit more about the portal at the end of the webinar. What I quickly want to show here on our homepage, we recently revamped our compatibility, because as we're talking about the Pro 2400, we wanted to kind of finish it up with the integrations. So Harmony supports up to 270,000 IR devices. It's actually up to 300,000, so we're going to have to probably change that, and more than 6,000 different manufacturers. And what's great here, you can actually search for a model, even a very old model. It's I'm going to deliberately make a typo. So let's see what happens if I do this. You can see it's actually referring, okay, so do you mean this model or that model? We're going to click out of that because I don't want to focus on the search. This is just to see if the actual device is in our database. What I also want to show you is what we've recently added. Here's a whole separate section. So we have a section there, you can actually see our IP integration. So what I see a lot of installers, when they program the remote, they can see that we discover a lot of devices. Now, just because we discover them on the network, the reason that we discover them is to avoid you from entering the model number. It doesn't automatically mean that we have an IP integration. So here we actually list the IP integrations that we're currently compatible with. So we have Sonos, Sony, Roku, and what's great here, if you want to learn more about the integration and what we support, you can actually click on the manufacturer, and that's going to open that specific support page. And it doesn't just talk about how to add it and so forth. It also talks about the control and how to customize it, and it's got an FAQ section as well. So it really allows you to really get all the answers. When it comes to voice control, we work with Amazon and with Google, of course. And then we also have a lot of Bluetooth integrations that we have. We recently added the TiVo 4K streaming player. The latest Air TV Mini has been added. And of course, it's also important to see what kind of devices we work with when it comes to home control. So you can see, we work with Lifex, of course, Lutron, Caseta, and Raw2 Select, and all of them, again, go to the support articles where you can see a lot of tips and tricks, kind of how the experience works. And of course, we've separated that into shades, locks, and so forth. So this is a great page that we really revamped, and that's driven by me. I decided to kind of change this page because I want to make sure that you guys have the answers, that you can actually see on this specific page what our integrations are. So with that, I'm going to briefly pause it, and we're going to go and get my iPad up and running here. Gary, do we want to take any questions, or are we good to continue on?
Tom had just I think interjected. He was asking Radio Raw 2 or just Select.
Right now, that's a great question. Yeah, as you can see, it's just Raw 2 at this Raw 2 Select. So Raw 2 is built on an older platform that doesn't tie in with that same API. We are constantly looking at that experience. We have a really good relationship with Lutron. Who knows, it might all eventually tie into the same API, and then it would be a very easy way of connecting that as well. But right now, our integration is specifically with Caseta and Raw2 Select.
All right, we're clear, Pike.
All right, great. So I'm bringing up my iPad, as you can see here. Now this, of course, you can also do, I want to make sure that, do not disturb is on, great. You can also do this on your phone. You can do this on an Android device as well. Now, I know a lot of installers love their laptops, but the world is changing. If you set up Sonos, you're going to need a mobile device. Caseta, Raw2 Select, Nest products. There's a lot of products that just demand a mobile device, and we have taken this same route, and there's a reason for that. The app can directly communicate to the hub. It doesn't need an old conventional USB cable. And trust me, when I was in customer service back in 2005, I've wasted so much time when the USB driver was either corrupted because they did some beta update on Windows, or there was a kink in the cable. I can go on, but the reason being, there is just a lot of benefits of using a mobile device to do the programming. So the thing that I really want to educate everyone on is what you want to do. Like you can see here, I have the Harmony app installed, but as an installer, you do not want to launch the Harmony app, because when you launch the Harmony app, we assume that you're a consumer. We can't tell that you're an installer, right? So just as on the desktop, I was on pro.myharmony.com, I'm going to do the same here, and you can make life much easier. What you may see here is that I actually have an icon that shows Pro Portal, and what that is basically it's just a little app shortcut, as you can see here. I want to make sure that, can we still see my screen proper? I'm not sure if we're sharing the right screen. Just bear with me here for a second. I just noticed that. There we go. My apologies for that. So everyone can see my screen. So now we've got the iPad up. So what you can see here is that I have a special shortcut. And this is something you can easily do on iOS with Safari. You can also do it on Android with Chrome. It's just basically adding it to the home screen. So the website, again, is just pro.myharmony.com. But then once you're on the website, so pro.myharmony.com, you hit this little box here, and on your phone, it would be on the bottom, this little thing. And with Android, it's just very easy with Chrome. And you basically, when you select that, you click add to home screen. And now what you basically get is, if I just click this little Pro Portal, it's automatically launching me on the Pro Portal website. So it's like almost having an app. And now we know that you're an installer. So now, as you can see, it automatically logs me in. So you can see the same interface. I'm going to go to clients. So you can see these are all the clients basically in my account. You can search by first and last name. And this is a great way to manage your customers. So in this case, we're going to connect to my test account here, and just this is going to basically bring up all the remotes associated with this customer. And you can see this is another example why you want to, name the room as well. So you can see edit remote. And if you're on a desktop, you're not going to see edit remote because we've specifically designed the mobile app for the Pro 2400 because it has advanced features that no longer are actually developed on the desktop software. It doesn't support proper programming for home control devices. It doesn't have the ability to schedule activities. A lot of these advanced programming features are just simply not available on our desktop software. And that's another reason why we decided to really go on focusing on the mobile setup experience. And when it comes to screen real estate, you can run it on your phone or on your iPad or on a tablet, right? And the other benefit is, of course, if your customer calls you and they already have a functional Harmony remote, but they decided, you know what, John, everything's working great, but we decided to add HBO as a favorite and Showtime. Can you come by and add those favorites to our remote? Well, that's a little bit ridiculous driving 40 miles. Why not just pull up your phone? You could be in the office. You could be, just, enjoying your lunch, whatever you're doing. You got your phone there. You can basically pull up the customer. You can then basically select the hub that needs to be changed. So the living room or the bedroom or the kitchen in this scenario. And what will happen is it's going to basically then prompt you to open up the Harmony software. And then from there, it's going to basically connect, in this case, to the kitchen, right? And now you're basically logged in and connected to the hub. And that's something that's, again, only supported with mobile. And this is just the benefit of using a mobile device and being able to, remotely manage your customers. It's just the way that you're connected now. You can then, from there on, actually connect to their configuration and make changes. So that's something that we want to educate installers on, that they have the right tools that they can connect to. I want to make sure that it looks like my screen sharing just bugged. Let me make sure that I'm connected right. Just bear with me for a quick second. Might have to switch to the other network here.
We're standing by, buddy.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, I'm just gonna reconnect my iPad. It's this the screen share that just dropped off here. There we go. Think it's coming back up. There we go. And so yeah, I had a little bit of a lost connection. There we go. So I think it's good now. So basically what happened is it basically connects to the hub. So as you can see here, it says I'm connected to the kitchen, right? So now what you can see, well, in this case, the customer is watching Roku. You can actually see if they're in an activity or not. And then what we want to do, if we want to make changes remotely. So now we're basically, I'm tying two things. I'm talking about the portal, but we're also going to really dive into some advanced programming features. So you're going to hit the menu and we're going to go to Harmony Setup. And then we're going to click Edit Devices and Activities. So here we're combining two things. One, I want to talk to you about why you want to use the portal and why you want to use it on a mobile. And we're also now going to talk about the programming settings. So taking a brief pause here, when you set up a Harmony remote out of the box, as I mentioned, the IR ports are basically by default, they're all assigned to every device. So the Yamaha receiver is going to get IR blasted through all 6 ports and the hub. And that could be fine in some scenarios. But a lot of times, if you want to clean things up, if you want to speed things up, you can assign specific ports. Now, during the initial setup, that is not a feature that's available because maybe, I'll give you an example. Maybe you're doing a Sony TV with a Sonos Play Bar and a Roku and a cable box. Now, out of those 4 devices, only one is infrared. So who cares? If it's just one device, not really relevant. You can blast it everywhere. That being said, our team is also taking in consideration by default that IR is being blasted everywhere. So we out of the box think the cable box is also gonna see the infrared from the TV and all the other devices. So we have specific delays. And we'll talk about that in a second. And I'm gonna show you how you can optimize this, but you need to be very cautious with this. Out of the box, you don't wanna optimize this unless you're gonna start assigning specific IR ports. So how do we assign IR ports? We're gonna go to remote and hub. So this is something, so just to recap, so after programming, right, you basically connect to the menu where you select Harmony Setup and Edit Devices and Activities. And you can see here, now I can change the IR assignment. So the Yamaha receiver, we're gonna go ahead and assign that to port 1. Now, we also briefly talked about what if we can't get infrared and emitter to the TV. If we scroll down, we can actually assign it right to the remote. So now you can see the Yamaha is port 1, and the TV is only the remote. And the Xfinity box will do port 2. And let's do the Xbox One, we'll do port 4. And now, of course, you know, Sonos and Roku, we're using IP, so we don't need to assign these. But now what we've done here, we've isolated the infrared, right? It's going to these specific ports, or in this case, the TV is going to the remote. Now keep in mind, when you assign the remote to the TV, if this customer really wants to use the app cannot wake up the TV. So they can use it while the TV is turned on, but for voice and such, that kind of goes away because the remote could be in a sleep state and now we're relying on the remote. So this is just another example. If the customer doesn't care about voice or using the Harmony app, no problem, assign it to the remote. They do have to point it. Again, it's a great feature, but I call it a great alternative, right? Anytime you have the hub control everything, it's a win. It's no pointing, it's voice works, app works, etc. So now that we've assigned the ports, we can even do more optimization. So as I mentioned, out of the box, these devices are all configured with a value called inter-device delay. So what I've done is I just went to the devices, I've selected the Yamaha receiver. I'm gonna select the living room AVR in this case. In this case, it's a multi-zone receiver. And I'm gonna go to basically fixed delay. It's really changing delay. The terminology should really be changed, but the value, now you don't want to change the power on delay. Why not? Because if you're going to set that to 0, we think we can just turn on the AVR and switch the input. No, the Yamaha needs 2 seconds. These are some of the values that we do and build in, so you don't have to build this manually in a macro. It's so inefficient. When we apply the values, we apply it to the device, and it's applied to all the macros that the AVR is part of, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the inter-device delay to 0. So you can see here, there's the slider bar. Sorry, I'll just swipe this out of the way. Give me 1 second. Did a little bit of a picture-in-picture mode here. Let me just cancel out of that. There we go. So the inter-device delay, we're just gonna go back in there. So let's hit fixed delay. Inter-device delay right now is set to 0, half a second, sorry. And we're gonna set that to 0. There we go. So now what we're telling the remote is, you know what? You can much quicker send the IR to the AVR. You don't have to wait that 500 seconds, of milliseconds between talking to the AVR and talking to the cable box. So now these things may sound small, but they all add up. And again, this is not something mandatory. What I'm trying to show you here is just some of these advanced features that you can do when you assign IR ports to specific devices. You can slightly optimize this. Now we briefly spoke, and now what you can see is it's basically syncing the changes right there to the hub, and then it gets pushed, to the remote. So this is all stored on there. And why are we doing these changes as we go? You might be doing several changes, and I'll talk about another tip for that as well. The reason is you might not be on site. You might be doing these things remotely. So that's where we want to make sure that we do these changes remotely and in small changes. So any change that you make, we then push that sync out. Now, we talked about power on delay. So that's the value that we're going to look at as well. So there are scenarios where you can change the power on delay. And one example of that is when we basically have a TV that now is just a monitor, basically. So, and what I mean with a monitor is if you're not using the smart TV application on the television, and you're just connecting an Apple TV and an AVR, and the TV is always on HDMI 1, what you can basically do is you can then tell the Harmony, you know what, since we're never switching inputs on the AVR, we can just set that value to 0. And that's what we're gonna do. It looks like my iPad sharing, I do apologize. I'm gonna just restart the sharing here. Bear with me for a second because I wanna show you that value as well. There we go. I'm gonna reconnect that. Okay, looks like we're back up. Yeah, there we go. So let's go back to the devices here. So just like we changed the delay on the Yamaha AVR, and we're just for time saving, we're not gonna do the sync, I'm just gonna talk about it. But you just go to the Samsung TV and you would go to fix delay, and then here you would basically set it to 0. We're just gonna leave it as is for now. But this is, where is this tip a very important tip? I'll give you an example. A projector, right? If you had a projector, most likely it's at 25 seconds or 30 seconds. But if we're not gonna switch inputs on that projector, we can set it to 0. So those are some great examples where you could really change the delays and optimize that experience. So just to recap, we talked about assigning IR ports. We talked about fixing delays. The other thing I want to talk to you about is we're discussing multi-zone. Now, with multi-zone, the way things work, right? And I'll just bring up the activities first, and then we'll just dive back in. So let's look at these. These are the activities that we created, right? Now, if I'm going to switch from watch TV to listen to Sonos, or from Xbox to watch TV, it's going to turn off the Xbox when I go to watch TV. Or when I go to from Xbox to Sonos, it's gonna turn off the TV. Now with multi-zone devices, or even some other scenarios based on your configuration, the customer may want to have the TV still, play the news, or they may just want to watch the stocks, but they still also want to just control the music on the patio. So they're kind of running 2 activities at once. Now the Harmony supports running 1 activity. However, a great tip that you can perform, which really provides that experience by running multiple activities, is just going to your devices. So in this case, we're going to go back to the devices. Now the Roku is always on. But for instance, the Yamaha, what we want to do, and we want to do this for every zone, we're not going to save this, but you go to the device and you go to power settings. And what you do is basically you set it to, I want to keep the device always on, but switch off when the off button is pressed. And now we're going to hit the arrow. Now this you want to leave as is. We're going to keep it discrete. We're going to keep the power commands as is. You don't want to touch any of those things, but you just want to hit the arrow to the right. So it's basically saving these features. Right now, this you want to apply basically to every single device. And what this will do is it will tell the Harmony, you know what, when I switch from watch TV to Xbox, keep the cable box on. Or if I go to basically listen to patio speakers or radio, let's keep the TV on. So this is a tip that I highly recommend for many of your installs. So basically, this is a feature that you do after you've done the initial out-of-the-box programming. You basically then set all the devices to keep them on between switching activities. Now that's, again, a very valuable tip for a lot of these advanced programming scenarios. You know, I also see installers, they may have a room where there's 2 or 4 TVs mounted on the wall. And that's a great example where you want to apply this setting as well. I'm just going to go back here and just talk about a couple more things. We mentioned, right, if a customer may have a different favorite that they want to add, you can just remotely, right, connect to the hub, and now you can basically edit the favorites. So we'll pull up the existing favorites. We're gonna just leave that. This is just a disclaimer. We're not gonna change the provider or anything, but what we're gonna do here is, here maybe they no longer have the history channel, right? Or they, you know, they wanna have an additional, maybe they want the home shopping network, right? You can basically now add those additional favorites. And then when you basically hit next, now it's going to automatically push that favorite to the remote. And this can all be done right from the tip of your hands. Wherever you have your cell phone nearby, you can service your customer remotely with these features. And that's where the benefits really come by using that Pro portal. So the way you have to look at it is, right, you use the portal on your mobile device, make yourself a shortcut. That's going to launch the Harmony app, allowing you to then remotely service your client. And keep in mind, we have a lot of these advanced features that are available after the setup. The way you have to look at it, when you're doing the setup, you want to add the devices, you want to build all the activities. And then once that's done, you exit the setup, and that's after that, you go back into the settings where you can assign the ports, you can change the delays. But again, I caution with the delays, only do that if you assign ports. Never change the power on delay if you're gonna use multiple inputs or the smart TV. If you don't, you can definitely set that to 0. So it really tweaks things, right? We briefly talked about, you know, some of these features that we have here. This is also where you can change the actual hub name as well. And here you can do also the customizations of the buttons. So that's important too. Maybe after you might want to change some of the activity buttons. So we're going to click activity, and here I can go to watch TV, for instance, and you can change any of these hard buttons. So for instance, you can see here's menu. So the menu can be a short press menu, but you can also, for the long press, maybe you want to have it do a different feature. Maybe you want that to go to maybe live TV or on demand, right? You can put it on the LCD screen, but you can also have additional functions to the long press. In this case, we're not going to save it, so we're going to disregard it. We're going to just go back to the settings. So that's about programming some of the advanced devices. I also want to briefly touch, before we run out of time, on another great suggestion I have, and that's more advanced programming. So there's a couple of things you can do. One thing, and again, this is not supported on our desktop software, you could have, maybe this hub is in the kids' room, or it's maybe in the living room. Maybe you want to set a routine where the kids just can no longer watch TV after a certain time. So just gonna go back just to show you. You go to the activities. In this case, we're gonna select the watch TV. You can see here's the schedule. So you could say maybe in the weekends it's a little bit more you know, open, but you can basically have it set, and you can even create a separate activity for kids watch TV and hide the other one, for instance. Or you know, I'll talk a little bit more about it, or you basically hide it on the bottom. Now, what you can do here, you can actually have it set that the watch TV activity will turn off after sunset, or maybe you want it at a specific time. So this is a great way where you can have an activity either turn on automatically. Maybe you have a specific routine in the morning. You can actually create an activity that will then launch that activity at 7 a.m. And maybe you don't want to just watch TV. Maybe you want it to start automatically on the news. So you can create more than just one watch TV activity, right? I could actually create an activity called news, for instance, and then basically select the icon. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I want to just show you briefly. You select the devices here. We're going to just have the main zone here, as you can see. And then as you're building the activity, there we go. We'll set the inputs. So now the inputs are set. Yeah, we'll have a picture. We'll leave that as is. After you've created the activity, there is a feature called starting channel. So you can now have this activity just automatically launch the news, or it could launch ESPN. And we're not going to test this now. So now if I go back to this activity, news, I'm going to get edit start sequence, right? And I'm going to select starting channel here. So I haven't set up favorites for this, but because it's a separate one, we already have favorites for the other activity. What I'm actually going to do, I apologize, without do the starting channel here. What we're going to do here is we're going to hit add a step. And we're going to just select the Xfinity. And we're going to actually just put in the channel number. So maybe the news is on channel 14. Because the favorites belong really to the watch TV. This is a separate activity. But now you can actually just have it sent channel 14, and you can have this launch at 7 a.m. in the morning. So this is a great way of using the scheduling feature. Now, another way of using these favorites is kind of the way I use it. So with Sonos, right? I see a lot of installers, they just create a listen to Sonos activity, but you can do so much more for your customer. Why not create, here, let me give you an example here. We'll just do, maybe you want to call it happy hour or dinner time. You can create these great, or pool party, right? You can create these great entertainment activities. So here are all my Sonos, and maybe what I want for this activity, you know what? I want the Harmony to automatically add my kitchen Sonos speakers and the living room, and let's throw the balcony in there, right? And not just that, it's going to also then set it to a specific volume. So you can preset them exactly to where you would like the volume. Can you do this with the Sonos app? Yes, but you're gonna open the Sonos app. You're gonna group the speakers. You're gonna set the volume, and then you're gonna select a favorite. Why not press one button and bring this all to life? That's the beauty, right? So as you can see here, maybe I just wanted to play, you know, party tunes or my favorite radio or some reggae, you know. As you can see, my daughter really likes Frozen. So again, this is a great way to really get the most out of the remote. And this is also an upsell. When you're selling the remote, you can talk about some of these great features. It's not just, not only are we gonna just simplify the control, we're gonna enhance the way you interact, how you interact with your devices. We're gonna really enhance that experience. It's all about the experience. You know, all cars have 4 wheels and a steering wheel, but it's a different experience when you drive in a Mustang versus a Pontiac Sprinter or whatever. It's just, this is a great way to really delight your customer. And you can do this with not just Sonos, you can also do this with Roku, right? With Roku you get the same thing. We have a great integration with Roku. And what you can do for Roku, you can actually have it launch. So in this case, we don't want to do Roku. We want to do Prime Video, for instance, or we want to do YouTube, right? So you can see, you can select an icon, you give it a name. We're going to select the Roku. And you can, again, what we're applying here is the starting channel and creating these unique activities. Of course, with Roku, when they start a Roku, we provide all the favorites. But if they love to use YouTube all the time, right? Or Prime Video, or there's someone in the household that just wants it very easy, or the babysitter. Why not just create them a YouTube activity or a Prime Video activity? So this is just some of these advanced activity programming where you can really bring it together with Sonos or Denon Hios, really grouping that volume and playing that specific playlist. Or with Roku, as you can see, really selecting that specific channel, that favorite channel. So you get a lot more out of your Harmony experience. Now with that, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my mobile, and we're just gonna quickly go back to the Harmony Pro portal, because I do wanna cover a couple of things with tools. A lot of times when I'm on a call with an installer, I share an article with them, because I challenge myself every time when I get a dealer call. I want to first ask myself, do we have a support article? Do we have answers? What if I'm not here? What if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, or I'm out for 3 weeks? Right? I want to make sure that you guys get the answers that you need. So a couple things, when it comes to really getting ramped up and learning more about Harmony, I can't stress enough, on the portal there is an e-learning site, and I'm just going to briefly show you. When you click on the e-learning site, it shows some interactive courses, so you can kind of take a simulation. This is also great if you are hiring another tech or a contractor. He can take a full course on setting up a Harmony remote, and this is completely screen captured from an iPad. So they'll actually get that full experience. It's interactive. They actually have to click through.
Click the text entry box to put in the name of the manufacturer. We're going to add a Denon CD player for this trip.
I'm just going to mute them here. So as you can see, I actually have to click on there, and now it's going to basically add it. So it's a great course. I highly recommend. Even if you've been doing Harmonies for years, you're still going to pick up a lot in this course that you may not know. So there is a lot of courses here. The other section here in the dashboard, there is a resource section. And in the resource section, we have presentations. And so today's presentation I'm going to share with Gary. If you ever lose it, the presentation is also here. So under presentations, I have a Harmony Software and Pro remote presentation, and it's a Google Doc. And the reason why is I'm constantly improving and building on that presentation. Webinars, also we have a section here, a lot of previously recorded webinars, one specifically on the Pro portal. They can be found here as well. So that's just like the e-learning site. Let's go back to the portal one more time here. So as we briefly mentioned, we're on a desktop now. This is totally fine, but when you go to programming, you want to bring this up on your iPad or your Android tablet or your phone. I want to just go into the dealer support side. So we talked about the compatibility page, the dealer support side. I want to help you guys, even if you maybe not even doing a Harmony. I want to help you with, for instance, finding the model. And why? You may be taking over from a previous installer. Maybe it was a TV that's never connected to the network. It's wall mounted, you can't find it. Well, let me save you some time. When I do testing and I go into stores, I test scripts, right? I work with a data team. I actually go and tinker with these TVs and figure out, how do I find the model number? And not just like for a 2018 to 2020, even different Android versions on Sony. They can be very, very hidden, buried in the menu. But it's gonna save you time, because a lot of them luckily do expose the model number. This is just one example of an article, right? We talked about home control. So I just recently published this article, so you could actually see, okay, that's great that Pike showed me. How do I do this again? Again, all of these things that I demoed today can be found in an article. So you can see here I talk about, okay, this is walks you through on how to program it. Oh, but Pike also talked about groups. Well, we actually have an article specifically about groups now, where you can see how you actually program the specific groups and so forth. And the list goes on. The other very important article, and it just sometimes gets overlooked, because yes, we need CEC now because of ARC. Some of you guys have sworn off and just run optical. I think that's great too, but sometimes you need it. Now, the problem is there's nothing wrong with CEC, but the problem is if the TV starts turning off the Apple TV or the other way around, or, you know, so what we've done is we've created an article on how to turn off these specific settings. So not just for TVs. I'll give you an example, right? Samsung doesn't have an option to really turn off specific features. You can only turn off CEC. Well, that's gonna kill your ARC, right? Now here, what you just do is, that's fine. What you can just do is turn off the CEC feature on the AVR or turn it off on the Apple TV or the Fire TV. So we really wanna help you get the most out of your programming. And these are just some examples of that. You know, we talked about power settings, right? Everything, guys, here, we made sure that we have articles. I didn't even talk about changing the power on order of devices. If you want the AVR to turn on before the TV, that article is basically right here, right? It's even things that we couldn't cover today. It's all here, and we provide the screenshots, the guided flow. So I can't stress this enough. This is such an important site. It's built for you guys, and I spend a lot of my time on that site to make sure that you guys get the accurate answers. Now, the last article, and this is not for you, this is for your customer, is an actual user guide. And what's cool about this is mobile friendly, but also if your customer is 7 years old, it is also print friendly. And this, if you type in user guide, you can also do user guide, even if you just do 2400. Let's see how that search picks that up. So there you go. So this is the user guide for the Pro 2400. Now, what I tell installers is, why not email this to your customer even before they get the remote? Get them excited, because we've made this dummy proof. We don't talk about the hub. They don't even need to understand that there is a hub, quite frankly. They need to know how to operate the remote. So it talks about activities, how to power things off, the home control buttons and so forth. And then it actually shows you visuals. Okay, so this is how you navigate through the different screens, just like your cell phone. This is in case the power goes out or a 2-year-old hits the power button on the AVR, right? This is how you can quickly fix it with help. Here are your favorite channels. And maybe the customer says, oh, this is cool, but hey, I want this as well. Well, I can do that. I just have to sell you a Roku, or maybe you should start looking into Sonos, right? It shows you all of these great features like the sleep timer. And with COVID, here you go. It shows you how to clean the remote without triggering the projector coming down and so forth. So that's, again, another great tool. Now, I know we covered a lot, and I haven't even touched on some of the latest firmware features. So quick time check. I think I can cover that in 30 seconds, and then we'll start looking at your questions here. So I'm just gonna bring up my slide deck here. There we go. As I mentioned, it's a lot to crunch in an hour, but I hope you see that a lot of this you can actually find on our support site. So this is the latest firmware version that we released, I think it's about 2 months ago, no, a little less than 2 months. And what we've done here is one important feature that I decided to really push hard for is, especially with rental properties, on the remote right now, at least for like, you know, it used to be on the Pro 2400, we've removed this. You had an option for devices. And I don't mean the device button here on the bottom. I mean, if you go to settings and then on the remote, so you hit the menu, you go to settings and then hit devices. What was the problem with that? Well, they could change the power on delay. They could change the input delay, the inter-device delay. Right? And that, of course, can cause a lot of damage. And now you get a call, especially in a rental property. They might bring their Xbox and someone has a Harmony at home. You know what? I'm just going to modify it and change it. Well, maybe they have an Elite at home. They can do that on an Elite. We're not going to remove that from the Elite because that's a retail product. But we definitely have removed this from the Pro 2400. We've also removed the activity section. The activity section is there, but what we've removed is the tutorial and inputs. So now they can change the icon that doesn't do any damage, or they can change the startup screen. But it's just there to really protect you. Some other small changes, we've optimized the touch area for the 0. So sometimes we've noticed people were putting their thumb there and it wouldn't quite capture the touch. So we've improved that. And we've done the same with the arrows here. They would put their thumb here and it would turn off the light. So that touch area has been greatly improved. Now with that, let's kick it off to some questions there.
Yeah, wow, lightning round, man. This is a great video. I mean, it is compact. It's a great hour, so please review it. I'm going to keep the recording going so we can go over some of these questions, Pike. Starting with Travis, and he had disabling the IR while using IP questions. There's 2 of them there.
Yeah, so if we use IP, we do not fire IR. There is a fallback if it completely gets disconnected like 20 times, but that's something we might eventually disable as well. Luckily, installers usually create a solid network, so that's not something that's going to apply. We don't do both. That just becomes very messy. So I'm going to set one of the questions, is there internal IR flashes? We covered there. Yeah, so there was 9 IR blasters, Clay, inside the hub. So that's a great question. Let's see, we got a bunch of things. We talked about rod 2. Yeah, and I apologize for the iPad not showing there in a second. So it's sometimes it is a live webinar. Sometimes that connection, it's a third-party share screen. I might be looking at something else, so I apologize for the delays there. I understand everyone's time is very valuable, so we'll look into improving that further down the road. Okay, so let's see, what else do we got? Those are done. Travis was asking if there's a Pro Portal app coming. It is on the roadmap, but unfortunately much further down with COVID. The team has been stretched and there's a lot of tech debt right now. Apple is making a ton of changes. There is a ton of security changes this year from different sites, including Apple and other third parties that we integrate with, and people are changing their API. So there's unfortunately a lot of tech debt. Hopefully once that clears up, we can start looking at that. I hope you see it. The app is not really that important. It's really the mindset. It's just, yes, the app is on the phone, but it's the portal, which is on the web browser, that's your tool. The benefit that it's a web browser is that also when you want to take a course, you can run that on any computer, right? And when you do the programming, yes, you use a mobile device, and ideally you just create that little handy shortcut. Oh, good question. And just to recap, to register, I want to just quickly show how to register for those who do not have a portal account. It's just simply pro.myharmony.com, and then you basically click on request an account. After the webinar, I monitor this the whole day, so every hour I'll be basically approving accounts. You'll get an email, and you basically click on activate the account, and then you're on your way. Okay.
All right, I'll make sure that I put that link in the email, since that one's kind of maybe we should bullet that. Okay.
Okay, so Travis, another good question. This is unfortunately best practices. I've seen this. I had this conversation yesterday with an installer that managed multiple properties. It's just like Lutron and Sonos. That email belongs to the customer. It needs to be tied to that remote. That's how clean programming is done. It's for RMA purposes, makes it much easier for administration. That's how our portal is designed. If you added multiple remotes under one email, we can't strip them out. That's you're gonna have to just basically tell yourself, never, ever, ever, ever do that again. Basically, the next time you're on the job, make a brand new account. Now, I do sometimes hear installers say, well, my customer doesn't care about an email. Well, it's a different world right now, right? I'll explain. When in 2005, you call me as an installer, hey, Mike, can you reset this password? No problem. Here, it's 1234. Now there is GDPR and all kinds of new consumer protection rights where we as a company legally can no longer reset the password. So one, the email needs to be real. Second, it needs to be unique. Now, I have a lot of installers that get that and they tell the customer it's in their service fee. If they don't want to provide the installer with an email, that's okay. Create a Gmail, and that's just part of the service fee. And you have to explain to them that's just like registering your car. A car needs a license plate. It's something that is so crucial. So that's one way. I had another installer, he says, well, I don't want to constantly create more emails. That's fine. With Google, there's a thing called aliasing, but you really have to be thorough and registering this proper. You can have bobsav@gmail.com. If I do bobsav+1@gmail.com, you don't have to create that Gmail account. It's aliased to bobsav. Now, if I create a Harmony account, I can put in that plus sign, and we think it's a legit new email, of course, and it will reroute it back to your own email. So hopefully this is a bit of a long answer, but it's an opportunity for me to really educate you guys on how important that is. It's no different with Sonos, guys, and with Lutron. This is a great question. On the boat, no internet available. Will the system still work? Yes, yes, yes. The way you have to look at it, let me just, and this is a question that is really good that I should start pushing out a little bit earlier during my webinar, right? Of course, if we're going to use an API integration, then we can talk to that. But if we're talking conventional IR, right, if I cut off the internet right now, right? The remote will still communicate to the hub. The hub is just going to send IR commands. It's not going to be able to connect to Lutron because we're using an API. The other thing is if it's a local network, say if I have a network in a cottage with no internet, or I just have a hotspot that sometimes works, if the Sony TV is IP controlled, we can still control it through the local network. We don't need that internet connection. But there is a lot of devices that, well, you want to have YouTube, you're going to need that internet connection. But if it's a boat with just an AVR with speakers and you want to control it with a Harmony and a conventional TV over the air, no problem. It's going to work without any issues. It doesn't require that internet connection. It's just for the first time programming. You can always bring a hotspot to the boat and do the programming that way as well. All right, good one. So that one we got covered. So Clay is saying huge issues with Samsung CEC and Sonos Arc. Well, first, this is a funny question, Clay, because, well, I'm not Sonos and I'm not Samsung. This is not a Harmony issue. Now, that being said, I never even got to talk about Frame TV. I have recently been working with Samsung closely. They've been tremendous. Samsung has recently provided us more IR codes. Sorry, not IP, IR. We don't have that IP integration for Samsung yet. But the IR commands that we now have will allow you to go into ambient mode. And I'm also working on enhancing the experience for the Frame TV. Now, this issue, I've spoken to my friends at Samsung and Sonos. I can't comment on the release date. Both Samsung and Sonos are aware of this, and both of them are working hard to getting a fix out. And I could even be as soon as 6 weeks, but I don't represent neither of these companies, so don't hold me to that. But that is in the works, Clay. Good question. Very quickly on the Arc. I know everyone's not on the Arc, sorry, on the Samsung Frame TV. We are now working on a much more improved experience. And I'll quickly explain that because I see more and more installers doing Samsung Frame TVs. Now that works great in the living room, but if you install it in the bedroom, when we turn it off by default, it's gonna go into Arc mode. So what I'm doing is in about a week or so, when we've changed all the data, what we're going to do is, one, we're going to add art mode as an input. And why are we adding that as an input? I'll give you an example. Maybe the customer has it in the bedroom. They do want to use art mode, but when they hit the off button, they want to actually power off the TV. Now, by default, we're not going to do that because most people may have it in the living room. They want that beautiful art mode. But what you can do is you go into the power settings of the Samsung and just add the duration to power off. And I'm publishing an article with pictures that will walk everyone through this. There will also be a banner on the portal that will showcase. So what I mean by banners, guys, when you're on the portal, always have a lookout on these banners that we post. A lot of you are not aware that we have a much better experience with Apple TV. That's also a banner. The Frame TV banner will be up very shortly once I publish that. But basically with that, you send the long press and we'll put the TV on. It will be completely black. And if they want to use the art mode, they'll have a separate activity. So stay tuned for the banner on that. Great questions. Let's see what else. Do we have anything else? What is the maximum PoE draw of the Pro 2400? That's a good question. I think we actually have that. Let's put this to the test here. So let's do Pro 2400. Let's just see. I'm an installer and I want that answered. So that's a good question. Those who search shall find. Harmony Pro 2400 specification page. I built this for you guys with all the techie stuff. So it supports PoE and PoE Plus. I think the voltage we didn't list. We did list it for the IR ports. I'll try to find the maximum voltage, but I think PoE Plus is up to like 100. So the fact that it supports PoE Plus, you should be in good shape. Yeah, I think it's Travis. Yeah. 48 volts, but yeah, we didn't list the wattage. So yeah, I will, Travis, if you have my email, send me an email as a reminder. I'll try to see if I can get you that answer. Just send me an email so that way I can put this as a reminder. So I'll put my screen back up so you have it there. And again, good opportunity to maybe even further improve that specification page, because again, it's also driven by you guys. So great question. All right, those are done. 5 bonus points for Travis and all the questions. That's great. I'm installing 2 Pro 2400s in a rack this week, and I was wondering if there's a way to make sure that they are not sharing the same RF channel. That will never happen. That's been designed. They even are okay to overlap. Like, we have QA stacking 6 hubs on top of each other. You know, it's not going to be an issue. It's designed. So you have to understand, Logitech makes a lot of remotes, but they make billions of these keyboards and mice. So this is a beautiful MX key that we just released. Anyways, getting off topic, but that same RF technology is in our mice and keyboards. So that's our Logitech unifying technology. So it better be able to have a mouse and a keyboard and all of these work around with the same receiver. So that should be totally fine. But good question though. All right, so I think we're caught up on all the questions. How we're doing for time? Oh, great retention rate. We've got most of you still out there. So I want to definitely thank you for your time. I'm gonna make sure Gary gets a word in as well.
No, nothing. I mean, we are completely entertained, first of all, but that was so much information. Thank you so much, which just proves that this was completely worthwhile. Again, you know, we're trying to cram all this at you guys, but there was so many topics to dive into. Thank you for the depth on the programming. That made total sense. But when you're talking about email solutions, that's something that I just didn't even think of, and really appreciate your expertise. I mean, you've got a viewpoint from such a large company working with the Googles and all the inner workings there and all the liability issues that these guys got to know about, you know, so that's really important. Thank you so much. Travis, great questions. Yeah, 5 bonus points for you. Hey, Pike, we're going to be back in about 4 hours. What do you say?
Sounds good. Yeah, in case you guys couldn't see the whole session, we'll be back in 4 hours. So if you want to jump on at the end and have more questions, everyone is more than welcome to join again or at the end for sure. It's great having you guys here.
How do you add ourselves to Pro Portal? Let's look at that video because he took you through that registration, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, just a recap. So it's just pro.myharmony.com. And then basically from there, Gary will be sending the link as well. From here, you basically click on request an account and you'll fill out your information. And from there, we will be approving that shortly for you. And you get a welcome email and then you're good to go.
And you're the one who mans that, actually? You're the one who's approving?
Yeah, we have another team. We have different people manning that, like also 24/7. But during webinars, I kind of man that myself just to get it quicker out there. So
all right.
I get emails as soon as you register. I get tagged on my email. So
same with me. Philip, just talking about, you know, some of the issues he's had with the buttons, they tend to break. You know, what's the construction like going forward, or the repair options?
Oh, God, I want to comment on that. So first of all, our RMA return rate in the Pro channel is less than 0.5%. I have yet to. I've had installers come to me that the customer had one had a COVID breakdown. That was pretty funny. It actually broke, and he broke his remote and two other things that we can't fix. And sometimes the dog gets to it. I haven't seen any button failures on these, but keep in mind you have 2 years warranty, and even if it's a little bit past, we're very flexible. We have a dedicated dealer support line, and speaking of the dealer support line, it's very easy to access because we've actually made sure that you have it right here in the Contact Us section. So right here under Contact Us, here's the dealer support line. It's open 7 days a week, and there's the phone number. And these agents are specifically trained to handle installer calls, which I myself, with another team member, also tend to monitor. So we review all the incidents on a bi-weekly basis as well. So Travis, never a white remote, and I'll tell you why. We had it in the past. It's called Cheeto hands. It's just, I don't know how Apple got away with it. I mean, I think they stopped making that white laptop that they had for a while. It just doesn't work. Maybe now, maybe with COVID, people are washing their hands more, but it's, don't think that's gonna come.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. Travis, another question here. What do we got? The main issue my clients have when using it this is a great question. So this is a teaser I left out. So I get that. So Travis is basically saying that, that they pick up the remote, and I've seen this. This is another feature that we are working on. So basically what happens is they pick up the remote, they just grab it, and they put their hand on devices by accident, by picking it up with their thumb, right? Or the activities, or their inactivities, and they quickly accidentally end up in devices. Now, or they accidentally pick it up and trigger the activity. So we already have an option there to slow down the activity trigger, but that value is kind of high. It's basically, if you hit the gear, and then you go to settings and then remote, and it's called the touch duration. This is a feature I built with the team a couple years ago. Unfortunately, the value was too high. It never got that change in because we wanted to revamp it. The next firmware release for the Pro 2400, what we want to do is, let's not just apply it on the activities, let's apply that on the activity screen, but also for these two buttons. And let's not just do 500 milliseconds because that sounds short, but to me that's an eternity. It is actually going to be more like 200 or 250. So we're going to shorten that a little bit more. But in the meantime, Travis, you can add that for, just tell them to long press the activity. At least they don't accidentally trigger the activity. So we hear you loud and clear. That's definitely something we're working on fixing.